Afternoon. It's a beautiful day here today. The person that makes sure that the weather is in a crappy mode so I can screw over me working outside is apparently on vacation. It's a bad joke, I know. Anyway, what I got here today, we're going to show you real quick, is how to take a muffler or one of these screw-on canister mufflers off a Briggs Stratttion engine. This is a Briggs Stratttion, kind of an industrial motor. I believe this is about 8 horse. This is on an old Troy-built chipper. And I'm doing this for a couple reasons. A, I always wanted to put a better muffler on this. This muffler is just about useless. It doesn't muffle anything other than it just directs the noise out one side. And B, I got another one of these engines at a sale the other day for $7, and it has absolutely no muffler on it. And I want to try and run the thing, but I really don't want to run it without even some kind of muffler. My neighbors are not that good at sports, so I thought I'd show you real quick here how to take one of these off. They're not too hard, and every time I see a video about how to take these off, it's on a bright shiny new muffler and a bright shiny new engine. So this is a little more real world, a little more, I don't know what you want to call it, unplugged or not edited. We're just gonna do this, and one of two things will happen. I'll get it off the engine, or I'll screw around and the battery will run down. That'll be the end of the video. I'm hoping this won't be too bad. One thing I did do ahead of time is I went and got some of this, it's called PB Blaster. You can get it at the home center. It's a penetrating oil. I've had really good luck with it. It stinks to high heaven though, so if you're going to use it and you're kind of a fuss pot, or you live with a bunch of fuss pots, you may want to don some gloves, because if you get this stuff on your hands, the smell sticks around quite a lot. So what I did was I soaked this ahead of time. And I don't know if you can see this or not. Let me zoom in. There we go. Basically, this screws in. There's two types of attachments to most Briggs and Stratttion engines that I've seen. There's a big threaded, like a pipe thread for these canister type mufflers, or there's the little, what I call box mufflers, and there's two. You can see one of them. There are two threaded inserts that a screw goes through. Inevitably, what happens is you run the engine for years, carefully ignoring the muffler, and then one day the thing just rusts through or comes apart and you got to deal with it. Well, by then it's a big darn mess. So I'm kind of wanting to do a little, this is sort of a preventive maintenance thing for me. Like I said, I got a hold of a better muffler, and it's kind of a downward pointing muffler, and it's supposed to be a lot quieter. So the first thing we're going to do is, I don't know if you can see it, is remove this jam nut. What happens is the factory, they screw these in and then they tighten this nut up and lock it up against the engine to keep the muffler from screwing out. When you go to remove these, the first thing you got to do is get that jam nut loose. You can do this a couple different ways. I'm going to use this punch, and if you use a punch, make sure there are no burrs up here from using it on other things, and make sure that this end is really square or sharp. There are little ears here, and they're really hard to see and get a hold of. And like I said, the first thing I did was I came out bright and early this morning and soaked this a couple, 3 times. I even ran the engine a little bit to heat it up, and then sprayed it down again to let it really soak in there. So I'm hoping this will go pretty quick. First thing I do is, there are little ears in here. I take the punch and try and tighten it, which is clockwise. A few taps, and then go and try and untighten it. And I actually did see the thing move, so we might be on a roll here. All right. I lucked out. It doesn't get any better than that. That's amazing. Okay. Again, if the engine's off the device, you might have a little better luck. I've seen people use big pipe wrenches, and that's fine. It's not going to hurt anything. This one's in a pretty tight place, and it's going to be a real pain for us to take this thing off. I'd have to take the pulley off, and then throttle linkage and a bunch of other stuff. So I'm going to use this pair of vice grips, and I've done these before, and sometimes you can get them off if you've soaked them, and sometimes you can't. And what I usually do on the ones that give you trouble is run the engine a little bit, get the muffler good and hot, and then put the vice grips on there and then spray it down with some penetrating oil and slowly rock the thing back and forth, and it'll eventually, if you're careful, break loose and you won't smash the muffler into 1,000 pieces. If you break the canister off of there, or break the threads off in the engine, you're going to be in for a not too friendly time, and you'll have to get they make these special chisels for kind of tapping those threads out, and I really don't know what they call those chisels right off the bat. They do make them, and I've used them before. They're for getting pipe threads, like a pipe nipple out of threaded areas. So let's see what happens here. I've usually had pretty good luck tightening these. Try and tighten them a little bit. It helps break the rust loose, and it'll come loose, and then the crumbs will fall out. If you try and loosen it, all it does is, if it breaks the rust loose, is it jams them into the threads. Moved a little bit. She moved quite a bit. All right. Make sure to, if you do this, that if you heat the engine up, you may want to don some gloves or let it cool down. Don't go grabbing that muffler. They get really hot, and you'll have the Briggs and Stratttion logo burned into your hand for the rest of your life. Oh, we're a very lucky man today. Here you can see the threaded portion in the block, and here are these two threaded to receive bolts for the box muffler. Amazingly enough, this didn't leave the threads in there. Sometimes they break off. If you're going to install a new muffler, what I strongly suggest is that you go to the car parts store or industrial supply place. So a lot of the places in the big metropolitan areas have bearing supply places. They carry this stuff, and they make this product called Never Sees, and it's a paste with, there are different kinds. Some of them have like nickel and other metals impregnated in there, and it's a paste that you paint onto these threads, and when you put it back in there, the muffler's heat dries it all up, but it kind of provides a protective layer, and it can really make this easy to remove the thing later. Okay, so I got the muffler off, and I'll go get my replacement one later. What I really wanted to do was to kind of steal this. And let me walk you across the lawn here. This is a almost identical Briggs and Stratttion. This one's a lot newer. It has a few different features, nothing major. It's pretty identical. The only thing that's real different is somebody's extended the drain and fill for the oil. And it also has a kind of a tapered shaft. So I'm going to go ahead and just there, I just screwed it back on. I'll have to get some gasoline. I just want to see if this will start. Like I said, I got this at a sale the other day. It looked in pretty good shape. I believe it's a pressure washer engine. So I'm going to go ahead and shut you off and do a little prep work. But there you go. In a nutshell, here's how to get a muffler off. Hopefully yours will come off that easy. Should be so lucky. Anyway, have a good day. Afternoon. If you watched the earlier video, you've seen that I snagged this muffler off another engine just to see if I could get this one to run. I got this at a sale the other day for a few dollars, and I was going to try and start it. I thought maybe people would be interested in seeing what sort of trials or tribulations you might go through to start this. One of the things I do is I've got a handful of tools I usually use on engines. I usually keep them in a little tray so they're easy to grab and get out here. And this engine doesn't have a tank on it, so what I did was I went and I got a little, this is just a little squeeze bottle I cleaned out, and I threw a tiny bit of gas in it, and there's a little bit of a fuel hose on there, and what I'm going to do is use it to fill a carburetor. The carburetor on these engines has enough capacity to run them at an idle for a minute or two, so that's fine. That's all I'm interested in. Well, I guess without too much ado, let's go ahead and see if we can get this to start. First thing I'm going to do is just gas the engine up and see if I can get it to start. Well, it doesn't sound like it wants to fire, so I'm going to go ahead and well, the plug's got some fuel on it, so let's see if I got a spark here. The engine's on. Well, there's no spark. Yes. Oh, okay. But notice that this engine, in addition to this shutoff here, it's got a throttle adjustment down here. It's got a contact to short it off here, so that would definitely. Well, that was a lot easier than I thought. One of the things I did before I fired this up is I checked the oil real quick. Wasn't in great shape, but I didn't plan on running this very long. It was more of a see if I could get it to run kind of thing. Basically, I'll probably wash this up and clean it up, repair any broken parts. That air cleaner probably had a shroud over it. I'll probably leave that muffler on there. Like I said, the other engine I took that off of. I'm putting a better muffler on, so I kind of stole from Briggs to pay Stratttion here. Anyway, I guess that's, I don't know, unless something else comes up, that's about the end of it. Anyway, thanks for watching. Have a good day. If you have any questions or want to subscribe, go ahead and do that. We'll talk to you later. Take her easy.